Just an FYI, there are some spoilers for the end of the 1972 manga Devilman up until about the 1 minute and 23 second mark. It's been 20 years. 20 years since humanity last drew breath. Our vast cities, monuments to culture, ingenuity, and power have not just crumbled, but are obliterated. In just 2 decades, demons have devoured every last one of us. Well, to be truthful, plenty fell at the fearful hands of their fellow man. Demons lit the match and tossed it into a kerosene-soaked lumber pile. Now all that remains is Akira, neither fully human or demon, with an army of similar devil humans at his back. Like two armies of yesteryear, they line up in dramatic opposing fashion. Ryo, Akira's childhood friend, turned leader of the demons, knew it would come to this, an inevitability. It all seems that way. Humanity's destruction of itself facilitated by everything from our own words to ample nuclear detonations. And now the clash between old friends. This is the final chapter of Go Nagai's classic 1972 manga Devilman. A story with blatant politics, anti-nuclear armament, anti-war, a nihilistic view on humanity as a whole that posits while individuals can harbor much good, humanity as a whole will struggle and succumb to its most heinous compulsions. The influence of Devilman can be felt throughout countless mediums, and it is not the least bit hyperbolic to say a sizable portion of our favorite creators in manga and anime share this cultural touchstone, proliferating itself into a franchise with multiple manga, anime, a live-action film, crossovers, novels, merchandise, passionate fans, social outcry, and think pieces aplenty. There's a lot of Devilman out there, and the franchise has gained relevancy in 2018 thanks to the Netflix anime that released this past January. This has likely caused a few folks to ponder, where's the best place to jump in? What renditions are worth my time? Fine people of the internet, I present to you, what Devilman is best Devilman, Part 1. Before we dive in, I want to state that there is too much Devilman for me to go over, so I'll be focusing on the more noteworthy entries. Also, despite the series' influence, its age means that not all of it is so easily accessible. So with that said, let's talk about the main mind behind it all, Go Nagai. Nagai was born in September of 1945, growing up in a post-World War II Japan, still reeling from nearly a decade of conflict punctuated by the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. It's not hard to see how a childhood in this environment can shape the anti-war themes present in much of Devilman. While preparing to enter university, Nagai suffered from a persistence of diarrhea that lasted 3 weeks, which one of his older brothers gave the amateur diagnosis of, "Oh, it's definitely colon cancer." Thankfully, Nagai's shitty 3 weeks was only the result of an inflammation of the colon. Still, this led Nagai to reflect about the fragility and brevity of life, asking himself what kind of evidence he wanted to leave behind of his existence. The answer? Manga. And so Nagai quit his preparation for college and started down the path, inspired by the creative works which captivated him while growing up in Tokyo. Like many famous authors, Nagai's story wasn't instantaneous success. His early attempts at selling his work to a number of manga publications were met with equally numerous rejections. Again, a formative experience for Nagai, who has often expressed his feelings on how being told what not to do only invigorates his passion to go against such. Nagai caught his deserved break at the age of 19. A test manga, previously unpublished until 2007, caught the eye of one of the most influential minds in Japanese entertainment, Shotaro Ishinomori, creator of Kamen Rider, 009 Cyborg, and Super Sentai, the show which came to the West in the 90s as Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. This led to Nagai becoming Ishinomori's assistant and in 1967 publishing his first professional work, Meikashi Pokichi, a short-lived gag manga. These humorous works made up the entirety of his career until the following year, where he was approached by the entertainment publishing company Shueisha. They offered Nagai an opportunity in the company's first foray into the world of manga, a magazine which began in August of 1968 and went by the name of Shonen Jump. Haran Shigakuen would not only be Nagai's first hit, but helped push Shonen Jump over the 1 million sales mark its first year. The series is widely considered to be the first ecchi, a genre consisting of plentiful sexualization, often of its female cast, and ample comedic moments. Nagai's editor pressed him to push the boundaries further and further, which he happily agreed to, starting with unclosed shoulders and moving to boobs, 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 and more boobs. Unsurprisingly, the PTA, politicians, and plenty of other folk were nothing short of livid over the publication of sexually explicit content in a magazine targeted at young audiences. Nagai did not relent, even as his first hit became banned from some store shelves, and the series' future threatened. In response, the story turns from jokes about sex to culminating in a war between students defending their right to express themselves and adults who would have them silenced. Subtle Go Nagai is most certainly not. But this isn't only a response to critics, but a timely reflection of the student movements happening around Japan and the world at the same time. By his early 20s, Nagai had trained under one of the most influential names in Japanese entertainment, becoming a headlining creator in the early days of the biggest manga publication to date, created a new genre, caused a nationwide controversy, and still, he had yet to create his most seminal work. And that's where Devilman factors in. So let's step forward in time, not to 1972, when the Devilman manga began, but to 1971. You see, creator Go Nagai penned Demon Lord Dante roughly a year prior to Devilman. Dante is similar in a lot of ways. Its protagonist isn't Akira, but Ryo, still a name intrinsic to the Devilman franchise. The opening is of a prehistoric time where demons brutally kill everything in sight. There's also a modern day trip to snowy mountains where a demon is released. Ryo's design is pretty darn similar to Akira's in the original Devilman manga, because Nagai is a prominent recycler of his own work. There's nothing all that worthwhile about Demon Lord Dante, outside of its nature as the breeding ground for Devilman. True to Nagai's incredibly simplistic writing style, the short-lived series focuses on a battle between God, Satan, and their followers. The big thematic selling point being that the church can be evil too. And we know this because some Yankee-looking servants of God gun down Satanists with machine guns. Also, God attacks humans and demons all the same, hurting Ryo/Dante/Judas, yes, that Judas, in the past, so again, really simplistic ideas that have a lackluster execution. It would be tempting to call Nagai's writing style overcomplicated, but it's so often straightforward. What reading between the lines exists could be picked up with ease. I say this as someone who pushes back against the notion that great writing needs complexity, calling Death Note, Attack on Titan, and Little Witch Academia favorites. With Dante though, it's difficult to take Nagai's musings seriously when the portrayal of villainy is so comedic. Why do the Satanists use a silent sniper rifle to shoot out the tire of a church girl that they want to kidnap? Why, when that same girl imagines being sacrificed, does she do so with an image of her boobs out, but when the Satanists are actually going to do so, they have her covered up? Just some classy Satanists, I suppose. Or at least until they have to cover her with chicken blood. Meanwhile, the plot is all over the place. Ryo goes up into the mountains with a group of guys for a purpose completely unbeknownst to the reader. Who are they? Why is Ryo with them? And why are they up there? No idea. This transitions in a breakneck fashion to shadowy plotting between the aforementioned cartoon characters of the Satanists and God-fearing folk, which in turn involves into a kaiju-esque attack on some sort of futuristic Japanese city. But hey, the city looks kinda neat, and Dante has some of Nagai's most detailed and striking artwork. This is all just the first volume. Wielding the names of Dante, Judas, Lucifer, Satan, and plenty of religious imagery, opening with a prehistoric Earth, Nagai is as blatant with his influences as he is with his metaphors. Having come across a Japanese copy of the Divine Comedy as a kid, and like many manga authors of his era, Osamu Tezuka was a mainstay, specifically Lost World. With gruesome violence and incessant need to depict its female cast both naked and vulnerable, Demon Lord Dante is little more than a guy flexing his abilities to offend. To have simplistic thematic notions, do little with them, and wrap it all in loads of explicit content. The premature conclusion of the series, due to the closure of publisher Kodanasha's Bokura magazine, allowed Nagai to rework the premise, in part of Toei's interest in adapting the story to a more kid-friendly anime, in also ending some of his other works. This is where Devilman is both born and further complicated. Those of us familiar with the manga and anime industry know the formula I'm about to detail well. A manga is created. It runs for maybe a year or so before its popularity rises enough for it to garner anime adaptation interests. The manga continues under its creator as they provide some guidance for the anime adaptation. That's the common and modern path from manga to anime. With Devilman though, Nagai worked on both the original manga and anime with varying degrees of involvement pretty much simultaneously, with the manga beginning June 11th, 1972 and ending June 24th, 1973. The anime meanwhile ran from July 8th, 1972 to April 7th, 1973. Nagai's major involvement with the anime concluded after submitting a reworked premise and turning his focus to the manga. The opening panels of Devilman are gorgeous. Highly detailed colored panels of a dinosaur-infested jungle, like an old scientific picture book I recall reading as a child. Even with the low-quality scans, the visuals are impressive. The angel gently towing the calm surface of a lake. Literally then, all hell breaks loose and the serene beauty is defiled. Given the crudeness of Demon Lord Dante, this feels like such an upgrade both aesthetically and thematically. Again, though, this is Go Nagai. Female angels are killed, boobs and labias out, and detailed expressions of intense pain. One in particular being penetrated through her stomach by a tentacle monster. A creature in the background lifts the imagery of Cthulhu, a creation of the infamous American author H.P. Lovecraft, with no thoughtful contextualization. Devilman is, like its predecessor, a work created to offend, to push the boundaries of what is acceptable to show in media, but also, as I mentioned earlier, criticize humanity's desire to harm itself. This political commentary and graphic violence is what sealed Devilman's grand fate. Nagai couldn't have come up in a better time. In the 60s and 70s, Japan, like many first world countries, underwent a cultural revolution, one that was founded on progressive views and staunch anti-war politics. One where the belief that all people are equal was not just a line in some document mentioned in history textbooks, but a genuine, wholehearted conviction. In Japan, this took the form of student protests, which photographers such as Hitomi Watanabe captured. The creative minds of the era, Nagai included, echoed such sentiments, the desire to question societal norms. To get back to those angels and demons though, this is all in service to set up the coming conflict, that between humans and demons, which is as uncomplicated as it sounds. This is the premise for every bit of Devilman media I've encountered, but it's particularly simple here. Simple and so very messy at times. Contrivances are commonplace, for example, the iconic scene of Ryo Asuka bringing Akira Fudo to the party that in other renditions is like an ecstasy-fueled orgy of limitless animalistic disregard of any inhibition. Well, it's a relatively tame nightclub this time around that just so happens to be in the secret basement of the Asuka family home that has been abandoned for years. What's the conversation here? Like, how does the logistics of this work? Does Ryo just have a group of hippies on standby willing to go up into his creepy-ass mansion and descend down into a hidden basement? Why not just make it an actual nightclub that Ryo has looked into and discovered to be a hotspot for drugs and sex? Which I suppose now is as good a time as any to mention how weirdly judgmental this section is. These people are supposed to be in moral positions that are vulnerable to demon possession or summoning a demon of some sort. How so? They do some drugs and dance provocatively. For a man who founded the ecchi genre, who litters his manga with violence and naked females, this is an oddly puritanical contradiction. Like, there are some boobs out, and Ryo lights up a joint before they go in. I get it. 1970s Japan is not as progressive as modern day America, where I've lived my whole life. But to suggest weed, dancing, and naked bodies or some unholy action capable of summoning demons is again really weird for the guy who created ecchi to be writing. I'm trying to understand all this, and all I got is Nagai looked at Hieronymus Bosch's The Garden of Earthly Delights and said, well, I want to jam that in somewhere. And he sure did. The origin of the demons, as explained early on, is not interesting. Nagai chooses to elaborate on that which needs no elaboration. Demons don't need origins. The scary thing about them is that the line between human and demon is blurred. That many of us so easily slip into acts worth demonizing without even realizing it. That we as a species are imperfect and highly susceptible to being awful. To have it all explained as demons being some pre-human species that is our sole predator yet somehow got frozen in the South and North Poles while humanity survived the Ice Age is, well, lame. And Akira just accepts all this as it's told by Ryo. Not a doubt. Just yeah, sure, I'll let myself be possessed by a demon in hopes of saving humanity. After all, you're my childhood friend, Rio. Though I haven't seen you in years and you show up out of nowhere with a basement of on-call party hippies. This all seems totally reasonable. Then there's the matter of the Makimura family, who remembers nothing from Serene's attack on their home, despite some of them being conscious. The hole in the roof is magically fixed and they all forget. Shortly after, the group of Yankee thugs who've been harassing Akira and Miki through the first couple volumes are attacked by a demon, specifically a headcrab looking one that uses mind control. There's zero logic behind the rules of this world. If anything, the Yankees who were mind controlled should be the ones to forget. This all happens because the plot demands it. Nagai, unable to think of more compelling and thematically resonant ideas of how to get from point A to point B, so often settles for cheap answers, imploring you to never think too long on them because gratuitous violence or mildly forward-thinking themes are just around the corner. At many points while reading, I wish I had to do a whole lot less reading. What I mean by this is that Nagai is a far better visual storyteller, or at least when his clunky writing isn't literally covering up drawings with superfluous dialogue. That's when Devilman shines brightest. There are some absolutely terrific demon designs. So much so that many of them live on today in the latest adaptations and have been cribbed in other media. The harpy like Serene with those iconic wings spanning from her head, Jinmen and his shell partly assembled through human faces whose souls are trapped within his body, or the unsettling smile of Psycho Jenny. There are even just panels of Akira and Rio that look fantastic, which are helped by their stylish 70s designs. I love how Rio looks like the 25-year-old that sells weed at your local community college. The story culminates with humanity tearing itself apart. The panels where people are being slaughtered, innocent or not, that's when the end product of Devilman best aligns with the initial intent. Ham-fisted explanations of demon lore and plans are, well, let's just take a look at the scene in the 4th volume where two world leaders are arguing about the launching of nuclear missiles. Now, some of this may fall victim to fan translations. I can't speak to their history of work in this field, but all too common this type of localization runs into a multitude of issues. The presumably Soviet Union leader is warning the US president not to try and stop missiles fired by Russia from hitting America. The whole time the Russian leader is drenched in shadows like some Saturday morning cartoon villain, only to have his face revealed and confirm this entirely. This guy is totally in an over 40 bowling league and his teammates are Cobra Commander, Skeletor, and Mojo Jojo. Then he's got this goofy fucker in the Kremlin with him who later delivers the best line of the entire manga as part of Earth is being engulfed in light. I don't understand. Even with my 2 brains, I can't explain this. This has been a whole lot of maligning Devilman, hasn't it? Well, it deserves it. As much as I admire that Devilman plays around with deeper themes, it plays. Atomic bombs are hinted at within the 1st volume, and it does culminate in a harrowing manner given Nagai's upbringing, the graphic content, and the state of Japanese media at the time. Go Nagai broke down boundaries, but he did so wildly and with a careless, twirling giant demon dick. As a result, opening up new doors and inspiring young minds that would go on to create far better work. And this is someone who generally enjoyed the manga, just giving it a whole lot of caveats. It's never boring. It's like Nagai when he looked at, okay, this is how a story structure goes. There's the opening arc, rising action, climax, falling action, and he just said, you know what if we just make it all climax? It doesn't exactly make for the best manga, but it doesn't make for boring manga. So to Go Nagai, I say thank you. I really unsarcastically do. Without you, much of the media that inspires me would not exist in the ways they do. I am happy that you bash down the door when it comes to the discussion of manga and anime handling mature topics in a mature fashion, even if I feel your work never did as much. You even provided a space of exploration that has allowed one of my favorite minds in anime to have mainstream success. You are nothing short of a visionary and pioneer. With all that said, why don't we get into the final portion? So, remember earlier in the video how I talked about the end of Demon Lord Dante and how that led to Nagai being approached by the massive corporation Toei? Nagai agreed to clean up and make Demon Lord Dante more presentable to a TV audience that would largely include children. Where the manga begins with Akira being distinctly possessed by a demon, the anime has an oddly darker start that resembles Dante. Akira is killed and his body is taken over by a demon. The anime differs from Dante via the protagonist's name changing from Ryo to Akira. Conversely, the anime has no best friend Ryo, and the supporting cast outside the Makimura family are largely original, to state some of the smaller differences. Most notably is the degree to which the violence and sexualization is toned down. Also, the anime is 39 episodes long, and even if you don't know how generally an amount of manga can translate to an amount of anime episodes, 39 episodes, you don't get that out of 5 volumes. So the plot is a lot more stretched out. How this is pulled off is by changing Devilman into a transforming hero series that at times is very much in line with the work of Nagai's old mentor, Ishinomori. In each and every episode, a villain of the week is ordered into the realm of humanity by Lord Xenon, then causing chaos for humans. That chaos affects the people Devilman/Akira cares about, and then he transforms and defeats them in battle. Scrub and repeat. Devilman even has all the trappings of the genre, with a transformation sequence and shouting the names of attacks like Devil Beam and Devil Kick. For the first dozen or so episodes, it's an identity struggle. Early on, tying itself heavily to the source material, being far too self-serious but without the patented Go Nagai edge, lacking punch. When the show does begin to change for the better is when it leans towards the strengths of its predominant writer, Masaki Tsuji, a man who made his career mostly from 2 genres, sports and comedy. The latter being the key because by the midpoint, the demons take a back seat. Barring a handful of episodes, they become the facilitators of creating circumstances for which the cast finds themselves in outrageous, if dangerous, predicaments that are prone for comedy. So much of the dialogue shifts from Devilman figuring out which demon is tormenting humanity to goofs between the recurring cast members, and oh yeah, guess the demon needs to be handled too. But before we go jumping ahead, let's see how we get to this point. In those early episodes, so much is shot out rapid fire. For example, this bit of dialogue between the heads of the Makimura family in episode 1.
あの事故以来人が変わったみたいに元気になったね。ミキとも気が合ってるみたいだし。不動君が生きてたらな。
Hey audience, Akira used to be weak, now he's strong, he's friends with Miki, and his father is dead as shit. Here's our story. It's like if the opening crawl of A New Hope got cut down to, there's an empire and some rebels fighting, the rebels have some plans, Princess Leia is carrying them. Clunky dialogue remains a problem throughout, but at least the goofs alleviate this issue. One of my favorites is when Akira pulls up to Miki and her little brother Tare while on their way to school one morning. Akira, with his stupid t-shirt with an A stapled to his chest in case you forget he's Akira, offers Miki a ride. Tare remarks as the two ride off that it must be nice to be in love, only to realize he's been left behind. But then a little girl pedals up on a tricycle and is like, "Get on, babe," then forces Tare to pedal them both all the way to school. The show is filled with moments like this, and the obnoxious homework teacher being tricked into running full force into a glass pane by Miki. Though some jokes don't land well or quickly wear out their welcome, like how goddamn often Tare pisses himself. Despite the jokes and the more kid-friendly approach, the anime can't quite shed the Devilman skin. Innocents die on screen, and planes crash in fiery explosions. Imagery of severed heads happen in multiple episodes. And God, are people horny. School staff horny for Miki. Akira horny for Miki. Demons horny for Devilman. A demon horny for herself. And look at this guy going horny on Main Street. Too damn horny. Sometimes this works to comedic effect, and other times it's very Go Nagai, which the show even remarks about in the first of many jokes that break the fourth wall. It's moments like this that are so very Go Nagai. In particular, the clothes attacking ooze that only goes, "Oh, that's where Darling and the Franxx got it from." The political messaging gets a bit wonky too. There are attempts at environmentalism, which crop up mostly in later episodes. One in particular has a demon that can control all manner of flora, to which Tare remarks, "This must be happening because how poorly humans treat the environment." And hey, it's about as subtle as anything Nagai would write, but at least this is technically a kids show. Though all isn't so positive. During a journey to Tibet, the indigenous people are characterized as savage. Their funeral practices are gawked at, and there's even an attempt to sacrifice Miki. Yes, the tribe is being controlled by a demon, but the creators still chose an indigenous, non-first world culture to be the heart of such a narrative. Tibet, like most parts of the world, has a history tied to ritual sacrifice, but it's exactly that. To clump such specifically to a culture not up to modernization standards of the first world is at best uncreative and worst, deeply troubling. As someone who dives into anime and manga with an analytical intent, I've come to live with these issues. Not accept, but know that all media, Japan's included, doesn't have a clean history. In the manga, this is compensated by Nagai being a groundbreaking creative of his field, pushing the discussion of serious topics not deemed fit for his craft by society at large. The anime, on the other hand, is a fun romp through the majority of its 39-episode run, but offers far less of a political message. This is because it's willing to toss the contents of almost every episode into the garbage. Remember how Akira is killed and his corpse possessed by Devilman? A non-factor through most of the show, and rather quickly it feels like the character is being written more in line with a manga, where Devilman possesses a live Akira but does not completely snuff him out. The demon invasion, well, it'd be hard to know if that actually exists given how humanity seems to revert almost every episode to a pre-demonic presence state. People vanishing or killed, forget about it. City laid to waste, forget about it. There is little actual continuity of consequence outside the first and last 3 episodes. Those final moments which have the big bad turn out to not actually be defeated, and instead we harken back to Demon Lord Dante with the arrival of a villainous god, like capital G God, which feels like a shallow, if controversial for the time, statement. That good guys can be bad guys too. While being a mostly enjoyable time, Devilman is a hard recommendation, unless you're the type of person who is interested in historical dives into the medium's past. I can imagine a YouTube top 27 most influential anime of the 1970s that includes it. Or if you're really interested in Devilman or Go Nagai, then sure. Even then, like 3 or 4 episodes would probably do the trick. As funny as it is, as rad as that soundtrack can be, as iconic an OP it has, and thoroughly remarkable visual design at times, it is equal parts ugly with horrific character designs like Mio. Inconsistencies, broken animation, floating telephone poles, thoroughly boring in those early episodes, and befitting of background noise while doing chores or doing some grinding in a JRPG. That historical curiosity is my takeaway from all 3 of the Devilman entries we discussed here in part 1. If you had to pick one to consume in its entirety, it would be the Devilman manga, given it's the most significant of the bunch and can be read in a couple hours, even if you're the type to pore over every panel. Simply put, the origins of the Devilman franchise are unfortunately not as good as they are influential. Where it truly begins to develop into something worth your while is when Nagai hands over the reins to more talented folks who are empowered by his legacy of creativity without social limitations. That wouldn't happen for quite a few years though. The Toei animation ends on a to be continued and has never been continued. Nagai himself puts Devilman back where he found him, on ice for 6 years. But that's a story for part 2 of what Devilman is best Devilman. Well, that sure was a lot more video than I'm used to. I'm hoping to get part 2 of this out a lot sooner than I did 1. Thankfully, most of the work is already done, but this series has already proven to be rather intensive, so it would be greatly appreciated for you to join that list you see on the screen of my Patreon supporters.